Hello and a warm welcome. This is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. You can also watch this news live on Vision TV 24/7 and other social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Justin Bemuye and Anna Olayinka is a sign language interpreter. First, let's look at the headlines. Document to aid Nigeria's transition to a net zero by 2060 underway as critical players deliberate. Nigeria and United States commit to strengthening trade, security and diplomatic ties. Plus, Russian President Vladimir Putin takes oath for new 6-year term. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We now begin from the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives has called for more proactive steps from security agencies towards addressing cases of banditry and kidnappings in parts of the country. This followed several motions of urgent public importance citing cases of insecurity in parts of Enugu, Kaduna and Abia states.
This might be the fourth time that we will be observing 1 minute silence this morning. If you recall, in our last meeting, we were almost tagging our country, one Nigerian life, 1 minute silence. It is not enough. The most quoted section of the Constitution on the floor of this House is Section 14.2. There is hardly any week we don't rely on Section 14.2, which has to do with security of lives and property.
Mr. Speaker, between 2015 to 2023, more than 19 trillion naira was spent on security and security-related matters in Nigeria. Whereas we have an alternative where we can bring in mercenaries. It was attempted during President Goodluck Jonathan. They were about to finish Boko Haram, and later on, the new president was convinced and removed them out of the country, and the insecurity keep on escalating to northern Nigeria, particularly in the northern central part of the country and to the northwest. Only God knows where it will spread in the next few years, God forbid.
Urge the Nigerian Police Force and the Nigerian Army, as well as the Department of State Security Services, to collaborate and ensure that the culprits involved are brought to book.
National Assembly correspondent Mitaire Ekben reports that the House also mandated its Committee on Navy to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death of one Richard Onumagbu, who was a civil servant in Abia State. The deceased reportedly died after he was allegedly tortured by men of the Nigerian Navy over a civil dispute. Now, a bill seeking to grant enforcement powers to the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission has passed second reading at the Senate. The bill, which is for concurrence from the House of Representatives, is for repeal and enactment to strengthen the Commission in discharging its duties of monitoring of accruals and disbursement of revenue from the Federation account. This is in conformity with the provisions of the Constitution. Senate also passed for second reading bill to establish Federal University of Applied Science in Manchok, Kaduna State, to enhance the application of scientific knowledge to practical problems in Nigeria. The bill is sponsored by Senator Sunday Katung.
To provide and promote sound basic scientific training as a foundation for the development of technology, applied sciences, taking into account indigenous culture and the need to enhance national unity.
To establish the Federal University of Applied Sciences, Manchok, SB 13. Second reading taken.
In the meantime, the House of Representatives has appealed to the Academic Staff Union of University of Abuja and the management to find a common ground to end the ongoing strike in the institution. At an investigative hearing, the House Committee on University Education maintained that the failed engagements forwarded by ASU will be addressed. National Assembly correspondent Mohammed Rabiu Ali reports.
The Academic Staff Union, University of Abuja branch, embarked on strike to press for their demands. This prompted the committee to investigate the cause of the industrial action. This meeting is to resolve amicably the issues in contention. On its part, ASU highlight its grievances to include advertorial of the post of the Vice Chancellor, appointment of deans of faculties, recruitment of staff, among other alleged anomalies.
In spite of the branch ESCO interaction and zonal visitation of ASU to the Vice Chancellor on the same concern, he remains non-responsive.
The regulation of the university gave the Vice Chancellor certain powers in the process of employment. There's nothing that is done outside the regulations of the university.
Please do suspend the strike while we look into the issues.
Assuming up to the end of June, the council of the university have not been reconstituted, what will happen? Do we sit down, watch, then appoint one of the DVCs? I don't know whether the DVCs also, I don't know whether their tenure also will be expiring at the same time with the Vice Chancellor.
The Committee on Tertiary Education thereafter asked Abuja ASU and the university management to go back to the negotiation table and resolve contending issues to report back progress within 1 week. From the National Assembly, Mohammed Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
Now, a comprehensive document which serves as a vehicle for Nigeria's transition from greenhouse gas emission to a net zero by 2060 is being deliberated for implementation by critical players. This is to ensure Nigeria balances its socio-economic agenda with the various climate change initiatives. And Charles Alpha reports.
Nigeria, as a party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and as part of its commitment to the Paris Agreement, launched a comprehensive long-term low-emission development strategy, also known as the LT-LEDs, on the 1st of December 2023 at COP28 in Dubai. The document, considered as an all-encompassing instrument deposited at the UNFCCC Secretariat, serves as a long-term strategy expected to provide adequate climate finance for Nigeria.
Nigeria cancelling out all the emissions it is producing on one side and all the uptake or the sequestration or the neutralization of those carbon emissions to give us net zero is what this document contains.
The ECOWAS Commission is delighted to support the socialization of the Federal Republic of Nigeria's long-term low-emission development strategy.
Not just about the energy, but also human capital, how the human capital for tomorrow is going to be fit in terms of implementing the strategy. So we are there to support Nigeria.
Nigeria, Benin, and the Gambia are the only countries in Africa to submit this document as part of their obligation to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Now, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is convening a National Emergency Coordination Forum to deliberate and come with lasting solutions to mitigate likely eruption of flood disaster this year. Director General of the agency, Zubaida Umar, said the agency will continue to coordinate ideas and response strategies to reduce the impacts of the disaster. Elias Yakubu now reports.
Since the release of the annual predictions on seasonal climate predictions and flood outlook by NIMET and NISA, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has not rested on its oars in making frantic efforts aimed at coordinating strategies in building capacities of intervening agencies to ease the likely hazards occasioned by annual flooding. The DG NEMA said Total collaboration and coordination will be the key instrument in the journey of disaster intervention and mitigation in the country. She said NEMA, as the coordinating body of disaster response, a lot is expected from the agency. Hence, this series of coordinating meetings and disaster response strategies embarked upon to reduce and mitigate the impacts.
Based on the predictions, various recommendations have been made as preparedness and mitigative actions to be taken by relevant stakeholders to reduce possible impacts.
Other speakers at the meeting commended NEMA for always living up to its responsibility of coordinating response strategies aimed at mitigating the hazards of flooding across the country. Participants were drawn from the Nigerian military, FRSC, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Fire Service, Nigerian Red Cross Society, United Nations, Ministry of Water Resources, and other government agencies. In Abuja, Ilyasu Yakubu, NTA News.
Nigeria and the United States have agreed to strengthen trade, security and diplomatic ties that have been in existence over the years. Now, this was contained in a joint statement between the two countries at the end of the 6th United States-Nigeria Binational Commission in Abuja. The United States intends to support a new 5-year, $90 million program to support on- and off-grid development in Nigeria. Both governments reaffirmed that they are committed to collaborating on and strengthening existing work streams under the Net Zero World Initiative, deploying renewable energy to reduce emissions and expanding electricity access, and rapidly reducing methane emissions and gas flaring to achieve the global methane pledge. The United States also emphasized its engagement in improving food security and strengthening agricultural productivity, both globally and in Nigeria. This includes the announcement of a new $75 million to support the development, design, construction, operation, as well as maintenance of Indorama's third urea ammonia fertilizer facility in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Now, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is in Tripoli with several of her government ministers as she begins a visit to the country to sign cooperation agreements. The delegation was received by the Prime Minister of Libya's Tripoli-based government, Abdelhamid Bdaiba. The two sides held an expanded meeting which included the ministers of health, higher education, oil and gas, and sports from the Libyan side, and the ministers of universities, scientific research, youth, sports and health from the Italian side, in the presence of the Italian ambassador to Libya and the Libyan ambassador. During the meeting, the two countries signed MOUs in the field of energy, economy, scientific research, health and other common files. Abdabaida and Meloni also held a bilateral meeting to discuss a number of political, security and economic files, the most important of which was the need to support United Nations efforts to hold presidential and parliamentary elections in Libya in accordance with fair laws, and the efforts made between the two countries in combating irregular migration. The European Union Foreign Affairs Ministers' Council in its development configuration is ongoing in Brussels, Belgium, where Ukraine and Gaza, as well as other crises happening in Africa, particularly in Sudan. Haman Jabani takes a look at some of the issues to be deliberated at the meeting.
The EU ministers will exchange views on the situation in Ukraine, Europe's engagement, and preparations for the summit of the future. The discussion is also expected to focus on the humanitarian and reconstruction aspect in Palestine and the report by Independent Review Group on the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. The ministers will discuss increasing support. The dimension of the crisis will be taken into consideration. The Council will deal with the Summit of the Future to be held in connection with the UN General Assembly in September, the Belgian presidency actions related to global health, the EU and the African Union, and the effect of the review of the EU's multi-annual financial framework on the NDICI Global Europe Instrument.
To look at what's happening in Africa, in particular in Sudan, but the main issue today will be to discuss the Ukrainian plan presented by the Ukrainian government, and today we'll see how do we mobilize the 50 billion euros to support Ukraine reforms and to support Ukraine as a country working.
So together with other ministers, we will look at the Ukraine plan, Ukraine facility, both the reforms, but also the ability of Ukraine to support itself, and also in the view of enlargement in the future, ability to deal with the obligations of member states in the future, but also for the functioning of the country.
Finland is presenting a non-paper on global gateway projects with Estonia, and we are specifically willing to speak about the role of the small and medium-sized enterprises so that they would be also taken into tenders.
The Foreign Affairs Council is composed of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Defense and/or member states of the European Union. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We take a breather here. More news when we return. Do stay with us.
Fellow Nigerians, it is a good thing to be Nigerian. Good news! The Office of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is organizing the National Fabric Competition, the #One Nigeria Unity Fabric Competition. The aim is to create a fabric design that would be indigenous to Nigeria, showcasing our culture and unity. This competition is looking out for creativity, concept, and the message of unity. Open to Nigerian youths, both male and female, between the ages of 15 and 25 years. And guess what? You can apply wherever you are in the world as long as you are Nigerian. The winner of this competition goes home with a cash prize of 25 million naira. Are you sure I will not apply for this competition? Submission of entries close on Sunday, 30th of June 2024. Submit your entries by sending pictures of your designs via email to unityfabric.ofl24@statehouse.gov.ng, making sure you capture all parts of your designs. Together, let us unite Nigeria!
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has been sworn in as Russian president as he starts a new 6-year term. Francis Udojo reports that Putin took the oath during an inauguration ceremony at the Kremlin in Moscow, Russia.
Putin.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said it was up to the West to choose between confrontation and cooperation as he was sworn in for a new 6-year term on Tuesday at a Kremlin ceremony that was boycotted by the United States. More than 2 years into the war in Ukraine, Putin said he wanted to bow before Russia's soldiers there. He declared in his inauguration speech that his landslide re-election in March was proof the country was united and on the right track. Putin told dignitaries at the Kremlin Hall, where a trumpet fanfare sounded to greet his arrival, saying, "You citizens of Russia, you have confirmed the correctness of the country's cause. This is of great importance right now, when we are faced with serious challenges. I see in this a deep understanding of our common historical goals, a determination to adamantly defend our choice, our values, freedom, and the national interests of Russia."
Клянусь при осуществлении полномочий президента Российской Федерации уважать и охранять права и свободы человека и гражданина.
At 71, Putin dominates the domestic political landscape. On the international stage, Putin is locked in a confrontation with Western countries. He accuses of using Ukraine as a vehicle to try to defeat and dismember Russia. He told Russia's political elite after being sworn in that he was not rejecting dialogue with the West, including the use of nuclear weapons. Francis Udojo, NT News.
Now, rescuers have confirmed on Tuesday they made contact with 11 persons as they raced to save dozens still unaccounted for, nearly 24 hours after the collapse of a building in the South African city of George. Charles Alpha reports.
Municipal authorities said 27 people have been pulled out of the debris of the 5-story building, which collapsed on Monday while under construction. 6 of those who died, authorities said, are in George, which lies 400 kilometers, that is 250 miles east of the city of Cape Town. Contact has been made with 11 people who are under rubble, among 48 still unaccounted for. Head of rescue operations, Colin Dana, told a news conference in Cape Town that the main focus is to get everyone out, adding that once they have got all the people that they know out, they are going to start a process called delayering.
We're in contact with 11 people. We have one area where 4 people are in a basement, and we've been communicating with them, so that's quite a big operation. It'll take them most of the day to get them out.
I also have put in place through the Director General, who's sitting over there, already getting an investigation going. We have to make sure that while this is happening, we have got specialist engineers on site, because we have to find out why this happened.
Authorities said a construction crew of 75 people was at the site at the time of the collapse at around 2 p.m. local time on Monday. 3 teams of rescue personnel are currently working on 3 different areas within the site of the collapsed building. The reason for the collapse of the building, which included an underground parking garage, are still unknown. President Cyril Ramaphosa had offered his deep condolences to the relatives and friends of the victims and said his thoughts were with the families of the dead and missing. He called for an investigation, saying it must bring closure to the community and prevent a repeat of this disaster. George, which has a population of about 160,000, is a picturesque coastal city located on the tourist trail along South Africa's southern coastline.
Now, back in the country, the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, has reiterated its commitment to leveraging its wide reach to promote learning and education for effective communication skills among Nigerians. Omenka Amarachuku reports that this was the position of the largest television network in Africa when its management played host to members of the Toastmasters International who were at the headquarters of the media giant on a familiarization visit.
The art of speaking to a large audience sometimes comes with some challenges. No doubt, social commentators, however, identified some of these challenges to include fear of embarrassment, fear of being judged or evaluated, language barriers, as well as expected criticism from the audience. To assist people, especially those in the communication industry, to overcome some of these challenges, Toastmasters International, founded over 100 years ago, has been at the fore, providing lead for personal development in speaking and mentoring. Now, Toastmasters International, renowned for human capacity development, is at NTA to take advantage of its wide network to explore opportunities to advance development of public speaking.
As we speak, yes, we want it to go viral if possible. I want to write our story about this conference, and in that story, we'll say yes, NTA was a major partner for this conference, and of course, we'll remain eternally grateful for that.
Speaking to the public, talking to the public, educating the public, entertaining the public, and of course, you need the art of public speaking to convey all this, to do all this. So you are in the right place.
The discussion and outcomes of this regard demonstrated a shared commitment of both parties in enhancing socio-economic growth of the country. In Abuja, Omenka Amarachuku, NTA News.
Time is now for the Nigerian media to be at par with what obtains globally in the areas of licensing, regulatory standards, as well as content production and dissemination. Director General, National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, Charles Ebuebe, stated this when he played host to the Director General Voice of Nigeria Jibrin Baba Ndache and his management team in Abuja. Chukununso Abueze reports.
The Director General Voice of Nigeria, Von Jibrin Baba Ndache, said the visit is to consolidate on the already existing collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, as well as seek new areas of partnership in projecting positive narratives about the policies and programs of the federal government.
As Director General, Voice of Nigeria, working with my team, we're very determined and will be very unapologetic about telling truthful, believable, and timely, consistent narrative about Nigeria and Nigeria, Africa and Africa. People are busy telling their own, and we cannot achieve this without the support of NBC.
Director General of the NBC.
Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has condoled with the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu over the death of his elder brother Saliu Amadu Ribadu. The president, through a delegation led by his Chief of Staff Femi Gbajabiamila, described the death of Saliu Ahmed Ribadu as a great loss not only to the people of Adamawa State, but the country as a whole. Simon Archer tells us more.
From all walks of life trooped into the family compound of the National Security Advisor Malanu Ribadu to condole with him and the family over the death of his elder brother, Dr. Saliu Ahmadu Ribadu. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, through a high-powered delegation led by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, also condoled with the National Security Advisor Malam Ribadu and the people of Adamawa State. He described the death of Dr. Saliu Ahmadu Ribadu as a great loss, not only to the immediate family, but the state as a whole because of his contributions to humanity. The Chief of Staff prayed Allah to grant the deceased Jannatu Firdausi and the family the fortitude to bear the irreparable loss.
Malam Nuhu Ribadu is someone who plays an integral part in the running of this government. And there's no words that can console you when you lose a loved one, except to accept the will of Allah. And like we say, as Muslims, and even I'm sure Christians too, that life belongs to Him. He gives and He takes. And we say Allah again, may His soul rest in peace.
Lawan Ribadu, who spoke on behalf of the family, thanked President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the show of concern and prayed Allah to reward him abundantly.
On behalf of the family, we want to appreciate you for this gesture and to thank all of you, the Honorable Minister, the Ministers of Education, Health, the Chief of Staff, the Deputy Chief of Staff, and all the members of the delegation, and all those who came to condole us from far and wide.
Dr. Saliu Ahmadu Ribadu, a veterinary doctor, died at the age of 68 and left behind a wife, 12 children, and 10 grandchildren, among other relatives. Prominent among them is the National Security Advisor Malam Ribadu. In Yola, Simon Asha, NTA News.
This is where the news ends. Thank you so much for being a part of it. My name is Justin Bemuyen. Anna Olanka has been the sign language interpreter. Bye for now.